Hey, Jared.
How are you?
I'm so excited to get to talk to you about your third film.
I know, I can't wait.
It's been too long.
Tell me about it.
But hey, I've been there for the first two since day one at LA Film Festival, so...
I remember, and I appreciate that.
And boy, oh boy, you really surprised me. Here I was thinking, his third film is going to be another Western. Which would have made me...
No horses in this one.
Which would have made me very, very happy. But then I get this incredible, thought-provoking film that really, you've got elements in here of Shane Carruth's Primer, another LA Film Festival baby from 2003 or 4, Colin Trevorrow's Safety Not Guaranteed, a little bit of the 2007 film Premonition, and even some of the very visible fallout that we saw from Kate and Leopold with Hugh Jackman in 2001. You've got touchstones here to the genre idea of changing time, but also recognizable films so that people who don't normally gravitate towards a film like this will see things that they can relate to and go, oh yeah. So I love the concept and the structure here, Jared. I love it.
Thank you.
This is so out of left field for me with you. Where did you get the idea for this film? Because I think the way you've structured this and what you've done with the possibilities and this idea of people playing God, quite bluntly, I think it is just fascinating.
Thank you. Well, one of the, there's lots of movies that you sort of, that it touches on in that sort of, that genre. And I think one of the things I really wanted when I set forth to do it was to keep the realities shifting and all the big changes, limited to the family. To see it through the eyes of this family and these three characters or a couple of characters, and that, because that is their world. I didn't want to make something that was like, okay, we're going to do huge changes to the timeline and, suddenly there's a new president and the United States doesn't exist. I think the reason I wanted to keep it to the family was this idea sort of came from a place. I started toying with this idea around when the Ballad of Lefty Brown was, finishing up, and I had just become a dad. My son was turning 1, and I was starting to sort of really struggle with the reality of how uncertain life is when you're a parent, how scary life is when you're a parent, how much there are ways that it could, getting health insurance became a lot more important. How, making sure we were creating a life that we could plan for and give him a life, full of possibility and opportunity. And that was really scary and uncertain. And I wanted to find a way, I think, to help me wrestle with this was, through filmmaking. And then I'd also randomly had this idea for like a gun that could fire bullets into the past that I never knew what to do with. And I realized what I was feeling and what I was thinking about gave me an opportunity to use that concept as a way to explore these issues.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I love this idea of a gun that can fire into the past, because I know a lot of filmmakers, if they had that idea, would have gone with let's take out Hitler. Oh, well, let's do this, let's do that, which would, of course, change the fabric of the entire world. But you make this, it's very, very personal. and intimate the choices that you make here, so that it does stay centered around the family and around Malcolm's BFF Jabir. So we see minimal disruption anywhere else.
Yeah, I wanted it to be personal because I think it's much more. I think everyone is sort of, we've done the thought experiment. What happens
Right.
if we kill Hitler? You know, to me, it's much more realistic. Like, you know, people ask me, "Oh, would you ever use this machine?" I'm like, "No, I'm not going to kill baby. I know that's going to kill baby Hitler. Like, but I'm not in a position like Sophie is in this movie, where there is a way where her life was completely and utterly upended, and there's an easy way to fix it, and this machine could do it." And that's, I think, a lot more complicated, a lot more emotionally raw, and a lot more real for anyone to, you know, use a machine like this. You know, when you have that emotional trauma, I think it could, it becomes a lot more of a real possibility.
What you also do is where you really give us food for thought here, because there are probably a lot of people that would say, yeah, I would do it, just like Sophie, but they don't give any thought to the ramifications or the fallout. What happens to that person's family? And you make us confront the morality and the ethics of what is going on here. And you really give us pause to stop and think about what the heck are we doing? You see that with Sophie, and it's like, well, I'm going to fix this, I'm going to fix this. But it grows bigger, and it's like, you can't fix this. And you've got Jabir doing something. And then you've got Sophie, Malcolm, and Jabir trying to figure out, you know, what do we do with this? Should we do something with this? And the wheels are already in motion that could impact the three of them yet again. And I love that you make us stop and think. And this is where your editing is so key, Jared, because you are one who understands pacing and patience with editing in your storytelling. And you employ that here as well, so that you give us time to reflect and think about what's happening and these decisions that these people are making, while we're seeing the snap judgment that Sophie is making about things. So you really set us up for great discussion after the movie, but you have that juxtaposition, your own Aporia within Aporia, by your very structure. And that is so fabulous.
Thank you. Well, I also had a great editor, a great young editor on this movie, Marshall Granger, who, he did a feature called We Burn Like This.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew Marshall because he actually helped with the Ballad of Lefty Brown road show when he was, just starting film school. And he understood that when we sat down and talked about this movie, and he understood how important it was to be patient and cut it in a way that allows the audience to follow the emotional journey that these characters are going on, and ask questions and not allow each character with very different points of view. Mal, Sophie, and Jabir all have different points of view, and give each of their points of view moments to breathe and to live and to be.
Mm-hmm. No, the editing is so well done, but what really stands out for me initially is the freneticism, almost the high energy panic and desperation of Sophie, which is counter to the patience of the film. And that hits home. That'll hit home with a lot of people, I think, about wanting to make snap decisions and what the fallout will be. And that is what made me think of Kate and Leopold, and the fact that Leopold, history changed, and then all of a sudden elevators aren't working because he had invented elevators. So, it's a simple analogy, but I think for most people, they could see that. The standout in this movie, as good as your cast is, Jared, is your machine. This thing is just, number one, I think it's awesome. Number two, I laughed my ass off when I saw it. I love all the close-ups that you have of all the various components. You've got resistors, transistors, test tubes. You've got old hubcaps in there. You've got old fans that look like bathroom fans that are rotted. Fans out of cars. I mean, just who created this monstrosity? Because I think it's great.
A lot of the credit goes to Ariel Vita, who's we had two production designers on the movie. Katie Simon, who handled like the worlds and the realities in the house, and then Ariel, whose mission was to make a machine, set the direction, make it look like a fire hazard. I want the audience to think they're when they turn this thing on, they're more likely to burn down the building than affect time. And she went out and like sourced it stuff mostly the way Jabir would have. Digging through junk. She had ripped apart jukeboxes from other movies in her backyard that she used. She went to junk shops and picked up car batteries. I don't think she climbed into any junk trucks from metal scrappers, but, she definitely maybe ripped apart some fridges. Oh, there's an air conditioner that ripped apart. It was like, where would these guys make a machine like this? They would make it through trial and error, trying to get whatever parts they can, because these aren't privileged people who have millions of dollars. They don't live in Beverly Hills. He drives for Uber. He's just making this thing using whatever he can get his hands on and being really inventive. And it's a machine that's made through trial and error. Probably before he could even ever get his power on, it started 4 fires in that room. And he doesn't know what works. Parts of it are actually important and what parts aren't. All he knows is it should work.
And you do a great job of conveying that, too, with Malcolm and Jabir continually tinkering with it. And you see the frustration. And I have to say, I love Payman Mahdi, who plays Jabir. I have loved him since I first saw him in A Separation and Camp X-Ray. His facial expressiveness of frustration when he's trying to figure something out on how to tinker with this thing is fabulous, because it is still a work in progress, as are the lives that are being affected by this machine. So that it's a great metaphor there. But I just think it's fabulous, Jared. It is fabulous.
Thank you so much. Yeah, the machine, the machine is such an important character, and I think one of the things that was really important on a thematic level for me is, playing with overall appearances, and nothing is as simple as it looks like. The most powerful machine in the world looks like it's going to burn down an apartment building. The apartment building holding the most powerful machine in the world is on a street you wouldn't look twice at when you drove through. You'd probably be cutting through it trying to get to the freeway because there's avoiding a traffic jam. The people who built it are just, people who are sort of left behind in society. The guy you think is a total drunken asshole is much more multifaceted and leaves behind people who really loved him. And life is a lot more complicated.
Yeah, which is why the disarray of this machine works so well, because of the fact that you look at it and there's nothing, it doesn't have nice clean edges. There's not a compartment for this, compartment for that. And it's like life. It's messy and complicated. It adds so much. And I love the fact that your close-ups in the film are of the various components of this machine. The machine gets the close-ups in this film. And I think that's terrific.
Yeah, I think it was really important to capture all the junky parts that they used to make this thing. And one of the reasons I'm so glad people are going to get to see it on the big screen is they're going to get to see this machine up close and really huge.
Yeah. But now this leads me to your cinematography. This is an interesting palette for you. We had the beautiful richness in Dead Man's Burden. Those golden tones of the sun reflecting off reddish desert sands. Same in Ballad of Lefty Brown. We get the peppered greens of the Old West, the cacti sticking up, and some warmth on interiors. This is a totally different palette for you. So I'm curious how you came up with the color palette and the visual grammar, the overall visual grammar with this one.
Well, I worked with an incredible cinematographer on this one, Nick Buck, who, and he and I sort of wanted to use like language of movies like Half Nelson or Blue Valentine or Rust and Bone that were, handheld, that felt very raw and real. So, almost like a quasi, documentary vibe, like that really rough and indie look. That's why we decided we wanted to shoot it all handheld, with embracing camera moves that were like not perfect or jolts to the camera or things that just felt like there's a rawness to this world. And then we wanted to really use the colors we were trying to find is what we could find of this house and what we could find of the world around us, the colors that we saw in LA. And, our choices were to use a color palette that expressed the emotion of what the King Sophie mostly was experiencing. That's why there's pretty much a stark shift from the beginning, which is more bluish, to the more colorful world that when Mal comes back to capture that. But then there were color ideas that were also brought in by like my costume designer, Brian Kopp, who really wanted to use yellow at times when when something is transformed. We tried to sort of lean into yellow, or my production designers who, really, my other production designer, Katie Simon, who I mentioned earlier, who helped bring out the warmth and made the house use color to make it feel like a home. I would say one of the things we did take, though, from my experience making the other films in the Western is making LA a character in the story. For me, in Westerns, the land is such an important character and more than a backdrop. Whereas in here, I really wanted LA and the sense of place and their life and their world to feel real and lived in, and like it's a character in this story. And so, it was what could we take out of that and bring it into our palette and our style.
Yeah, I really love the style on this one, Jared. The handheld works so well, and the fact that the bulk of the film, you're staying in medium 2 shots. And when we're outside, we go wider, the big wide world that's out there. And of course, the color gets amped up outside with the blue sky, the hills, the mountains, and of course, Riley and the spectacular reds and yellows with her rockets.
Yeah.
So we've got stop, go, transformation, everything rolled into that. And it's just so fabulous, the thought that you put into this. Not that I'm surprised by it. I would have expected nothing less from you. But it works so well. Now, a really interesting thing, once again with you, is your score, is your music. This score Scott Salinas did for you, this is killer. It is so subtle. It is so haunting. The use of, in the instrumentation, almost like soft bells that create this otherworldly tone. Wow. What were you looking for musically from Scott with this one? Because I love it.
Scott and I, he's one of the few people who's worked on all my movies.
Yep.
He and I have a real shorthand on how we can, work on music, and he is such a talent. And this took a lot of exploration to find something. We wanted a score that felt stripped down and raw to reflect the aesthetic of the film. Because I think if we went, it was really important to us to not feel too big, because anything big would, I think, go against the look and feel of the movie. So he actually, as we were sort of experimenting and sending music back and forth to each other, he came up with this wonderful idea to basically use a lot of sound instead of using a lot of instruments, use a lot of bound sounds that he could play on sort of unusual, weird instruments that like someone built in their garage kind of thing, just like the machine was built in their garage. So a lot of it was made just using these unique sounds that were very for this world. And then we needed it, though, to infuse it with the emotionality of our characters, because it's a very emotional score. And we wanted to, help give more to Sophie's character and help, have the score that reflects how she's feeling in the same way. So it was like, how can we use a stripped down, inventive sound while also keeping the emotion at the forefront?
It's haunting, but it speaks to the film, and the repeating motifs that pop up are just wonderful. Something I noticed in here also, and I don't know if this was intentional on your part or Nicholas's part, a lot of profiles of Judy Greer's character of Sophie, almost like showing, and especially you've got that great mirror shot, almost like a schizophrenic, two sides of the coin thing happening. But I'd say the majority of shots of Judy are profile. And I love that because it feeds into the conflict of what's happening, and specifically with Sophie.
I think Nick and I are both drawn to that kind of shot because I feel like it creates a little more drama in the image. And then we would try to, look, we shot this movie in 17 days. It was insane, but we did really try to take advantage of the rooms we were in and where we could find unique angles to show sort of the emotion of what she was feeling. That mirror shot, it was something like that mirror was in that bathroom that we could shoot in, and Nick was able to find the angle to give us that effect. But that was something that was sort of discovered on set using what we had, and that speaks, I think, to the genius of Nick Bupp.
Well, it also speaks to your genius because of the fact that you understand how these happy accidents and things can happen when you are on location, and you need to take advantage of them.
100%. I think, when you can find the, strength, being on location is full of imperfections and different things and different unique styles. And I think you got to find ways to take advantage of them and embrace them. I think that you get something that feels so much more authentic and real and creative that way than trying to I always sort of say when I'm coming up with a story, I like to think about, I write a script and then I do a location, and then once I have the locations, I do a locations path. How can I use the weirdness and what I'm going to find and make my story fit to the locations in the world rather than try to force the locations in the world to fit the story.
So now you had a 17-day shoot. Building the machine, it was not part of that 17 days, I trust. So how much prep time did Ariel have to build that machine?
She had about a week.
Oh my God. Jared! Give Ariel a bonus, a raise, or something for coming up with that thing in a week. Wow!
She's amazing. And she will say, though, if you ask her, because we were planning to shoot this pre-COVID in 2020, and then COVID hit, so she's been thinking about it for a long time.
Oh my God. So now that the film, you're hitting the fest circuit, we got what, a premiere at Fantasia Fest coming up tonight or something?
Yeah, premiere at Fantasia, and then in theaters August 11th.
So now, third time's the charm. Your first was a charm, your second was, third time is an even bigger charm. What have you learned about yourself as a filmmaker, as a storyteller, with this film, after piggybacking on two prior Westerns?
I think what I've been learning is I learned to try to avoid cell phones in your movie.
Very good.
That was one thing I realized with this film. But I think each successive film I've worked on has helped me, learn how to work better, to be a better director, and how I communicate with my crew, and how I can be more expansive in my storytelling, and how I can better use the world around me to create, to tell stories and involve my team as collaborators in that process. In a certain way, I think it's helped me another cheerleader for the project for my team. And I think this was, everyone just had such a good time on this movie. Everyone was really supportive of it. We got shut down for COVID in the middle of it. I came back, and we didn't lose anyone. We lost one person who had another job, but everyone wanted to come back and wanted to be part of it because we could, we made it fun for everyone. We made it something that you believe in. And I think when everyone believes in the project you're working on, you make a better film.
You are exceeding all of the expectations I ever and hopes I had for you back when I saw Dead Man's Burden. I've seen growth in you as a filmmaker, as a director, as a storyteller on every level. And this is really something special that you've told this time.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to bring it out into the world.
Jared, a joy as always. Are you working on anything new so I don't have to wait this long?
I have another project that I guess it would be a sci-fi western kind of thing.
Oh!
That we will hopefully be able to get off the ground. It's with independent producers, so that might help. But, given the AMPTP's very, unwillingness to give actors and writers a fair deal, we'll see.
We'll see what happens. Well, I will keep my fingers crossed because I don't want to wait this long to talk to you or see another film of yours.
I don't want to wait this long either.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I can't wait for everyone to see Aporia. I'm just excited for you.
It's great to reconnect and chat again. Bye.